The arms race was the rapid buildup of nuclear weapons between Russia and the U.S. between 1947 and 1991. MAD is the doctrine of military strategy and national security policy in which a full-scale use of nuclear weapons by two or more opposing sides would annihilate each other. It emerged in the mid-1960s and guided the USSR and the U.S. towards nuclear deterrence instead of nuclear war. Nuclear deterrence is the credible threat of retaliation to forestall enemy attack. In October 1962, an American U-2 spy plane secretly photographed nuclear missile sites being built by the Soviet Union in Cuba to know that he had discovered the missiles. He met in secret with his advisors for several days to discuss the problem. Kennedy decided to place a naval blockade or a ring of ships around Cuba. The aim of this was to prevent the Soviets from bringing in more military supplies. He demanded the removal of the missiles and the destruction of the sites. On October 22nd, President Kennedy spoke to the nation about the crisis in a televised address. No one was sure how the Soviet leader Nikita would respond to the naval blockade and U.S. demands, but the leader of the battles of the superpowers recognized the devastating possibility of a nuclear war and publicly agreed to deal in which the Soviets would dismantle the weapon sites in exchange for a pledge from the United States not to invade Cuba. In a separate deal which remained secret for more than 25 years, the United States also agreed to remove its nuclear missiles from Turkey. JFK spoke at Rice Universities about the past by saying the last 50,000 years men have recorded history, but even though we don't know 40 years of it, the other 10 brought us uniforms and other kinds of shelter. Carts with wheels, Christianity, printing press, steam engine, and etc. Newton's law of gravity and nuclear power and a spacecraft to search Venus. He explains that America has lost the war on land and water, but space they will win by creating an aircraft and sending it to the moon. Using a CI booster rocket, FI rocket engines, and the technique of learning, mapping, observing new tools, computers, medicine, and the technical institution from the Rice, they will accomplish this mission. The space race was a 20th century competition between two Cold War rivals, the USSR and the US, for supremacy in spaceflight capacity. October 4th, 1957 was the launch of the first artificial satellite known as Sputnik, which was about the size of a basketball. It took about 98 minutes to orbit the Earth on an elliptical path, and it weighed about 183 pounds, and $8 trillion was spent by the U.S.
Space race was a 20th century competition between two Cold War rivals, the Soviet Union and the U.S., for the supremacy in spaceflight capacity. On October 4th, 1957, launch of Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, was about the size of a basketball. Russia was the one that launched it. 98 minutes into orbit, Earth elaborated the path of Sputnik. It weighed about 183 pounds. It cost the U.S. $8 trillion. U.S. then launched Explorer on January 31st, 1958. November 3rd, Sputnik 2 was launched, carrying a heavier, pressurized, and a dog named. What led to Project Mercury? Mitch aim was to see if humans could function effectively in space for a few minutes up to an hour. Each mission only took 15 minutes at one person's expense, and it eventually graduated into an hour, and then a day. 1961, Russian Commissioner Yuri Gagarin became the first human to make space a 108-minute orbitational flight in a Vosk spacecraft. First 7 astronauts were chosen in 1959.